Well, we're here at the Leadership Lounge, and I am talking to Faye Fleming with the Business Performance Company, and we are going to be talking about branding in particular, which I'm excited to talk about because I think that's a topic that a lot of people do not understand. So, Faye, thank you for taking the time to talk today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So you are one of the presenters here at the MDMC, so why don't we just start by telling us a little bit about your topics you're covering while you're here.
So while I'm here at the conference, I'm going to sit on a panel to talk about personal branding, some of the tips, some of the nuances about personal branding.
Cool.
And then I'll do a session for entrepreneurs.
Oh, very cool.
So you want to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
How to get yourself set up for success.
Gotcha. So we're talking the very beginning steps, kind of getting up and running, which I think is often overlooked. So that's definitely a good topic to cover. Well, let's start by talking a little bit about personal branding, right?
Okay.
Because I think that's something that applies to entrepreneurs for sure, but to a lot of people, even if you're not a business owner yourself. So how do you define personal branding? Let's start there.
Well, the thing I like to say about a personal branding is that most people start with, how do I create my brand?
Okay.
And the real thing is that when you walk into a room, your brand is already there.
Okay.
So it's never about creating your personal brand. It's about understanding what your personal brand is, how it's communicating, how does it land when you walk into the room, and more importantly, is the way people experience your personal brand helping you or hurting you in terms of your goals.
Interesting. Okay, well that's a good point because I think of personal brand in a lot of ways as reputation, right?
Yes.
We all have one no matter what, and there's no way to avoid it unless you live under a rock maybe.
Yes.
So it's already out there.
But then your brand will be the guy who lives under the rock.
Well, that's true. As long as somebody knows about you, right?
Right.
Well, so for a business that hasn't thought about this before and they are starting to worry a little bit about, okay, I need to be a little more conscious of this, what are some of the first steps to defining that brand or kind of taking control over it a little bit if you haven't worked on that?
So I like to say that there's a lot of first steps that you do simultaneously,
Okay.
right? So there are some key things that you want to cover. The first thing is your brand is already out there.
Sure.
You already have a brand reputation based upon the experience that people have with your brand. So one of the things you want to do is to really understand and audit and assess your brand. How do people perceive your brand, right?
Okay.
How do people think of you as a brand? And if it's a business, then that's easy enough because you're going to always have customers, stakeholders, even vendors will give you some information about what your business is really like, what the products and services really do. Because oftentimes, especially with entrepreneurs, there's a gap between what you're selling and what other people are buying.
Interesting. Okay. Elaborate on that for me.
So, for example, I once worked for a company that sold, they thought, transportation.
Okay.
They said, we build bridges, right? But that's not really what that might be what they thought they saw.
Yeah.
But what people were buying was peace of mind, mobility, safety.
Sure.
And you see how those two things are different.
That does make a lot of sense. So it's not about the product you're selling or the service necessarily, it's about the value that the people are deriving from it, right?
And how they consume it, and for what reasons are they buying it.
Okay.
So I could say, so why do you have that blue shirt? Why did you buy that? And you would say,
I needed a shirt. I'm not very good at shopping. I don't know. I bought a bunch of the same shirt though. I mean,
okay, did you buy them all in a blue color?
No, I did some variety of color.
Okay, so there was a reason why you picked that style, but you bought different colors. Because in your mind, there are different occasions for which you will use different colors, right?
Yeah, of course.
So if I'm a shirt manufacturer, I need to know that. And as opposed to me saying, oh, this is all the rage in Paris this year, what I really want to know is, who is my customer? For what reasons did he buy that shirt? And what makes him want to buy it in different colors?
Gotcha.
And once I get to that, then I can sit back and say, oh, now that I better understand who my customer is, then I'll understand even the palette of colors that those shirts need to come in.
Gotcha, okay. So I'm thinking about a small business right now, and I'm thinking, if I want to figure this out, I want to understand what my existing brand is.
Yes.
That a lot of times that's a scary process, right? Because if you haven't had these conversations with customers or your vendors, you haven't kind of asked the questions of, what do you think of me?
Okay.
That can be a little intimidating. So what should they do? I mean, should we send out a survey? Should we call people up? I mean, how do you gather that information initially?
So what I would do is to look at the temperament of my business and who my customers are and how I meet my customer.
Okay.
So for example, if it's a bank, I would simply have some informal conversations with people as they come into the bank and they're waiting in line. And it's very simple. It's, so for what reasons did you pick our bank? Because
Okay.
I know in the street there are lots of other banks you could have done business with. What do you especially like about doing business with us? What do you think makes our bank different from the other bank? It's those kinds of things, right?
Sure.
And along with that, then once I go to the teller could say, hey, today we're trying to find out if people think that CDs are more important than savings account. What do you think? So every touch point, every time you touch a customer or a customer interacts with your business, if it's a touch point hitting your website, if it's I call in and speak to a human being, if it's I call in and take music, what kind of
Sure.
music is that? All of that tells me whether or not you know who I am. And for businesses large and small, we should be the first ones who know more about our customers than anybody else.
Of course, yeah. So, all right, well, I like this. So you get this information, you start to get a
Yes.
sense of where your brand is at currently.
Yes.
What can you start to do to grow it, right? So what kinds of tools should businesses be using to expand that personal brand?
So let's talk about this much like taking a journey.
Okay.
So if we were saying we were going to take a journey, the first thing we would do is what? Decide where we're going, right?
Yeah, well, you hope so, yeah.
Okay. So the first thing you want to do, if you want to explore your business brand or even your personal brand, the first thing you want to do is to say, who is my brand? You know, what attributes do I hold dear? What values do I have? Who do I want to be perceived as in terms of my brand?
Gotcha.
Same thing for a business. What are we in business to do? Who are our customers? How do we want people to think, feel, and experience us when they interact with us? Whether it's online, whether it's in person, direct mail, whatever touch points you can make with your business.
Okay.
So you first figure out what you want your brand to be. That gets you started in your journey. You know what city you're flying into, right?
Sure.
And then you go to, what are people saying about my brand right now?
Okay.
You know, how does my brand land when I walk into the room, if it's personal? And if people came into this conference and they saw these exhibit tables, what am I promoting? What am I saying? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? And what does that tell them about my business brand?
Okay.
And then the next step on this journey is to say, are we in sync? Are we in alignment?
Okay.
And if we're not, then it's time to renovate your brand. Because of course, it's never about building a brand.
Okay.
Your brand comes to life the first time.
It's already there, yeah.
First time you open your doors, you got a brand.
Okay.
And then it's renovating in meaningful ways that allow you to have a brand that is helpful to building your business. So for example, if I were working with a law firm, probably you don't want people to walk away from an interaction with a law firm saying, oh God, that was fun. They're the life of the party.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
so
really
much.
Yeah,
not
not
so
how it
much.
works.
Not so much, right? So a law firm would have some attributes that they really would need to sell in, like high credibility, being judicious, being practical, being reasonable, being an expert in the law.
Sure.
But if you flip it and now you're a video company, it is important for people to think that they're going to have fun
Sure.
when you interview them. They don't want you to be boring and practical and sequential,
Yeah.
right?
Keep people entertained, yeah. You're gonna
Yes.
be on camera, right?
Because that's part of what they're buying you for. Yes, we want the video, but we want you to interview me in a way that lets me shine and lets people see how excited I am about doing the kind of work that I do. And I want to have fun engaging with you.
Good. Yeah, I hope we're doing a good job. I feel like that's putting me on the spot a little bit
Okay,
here.
I think
Yeah.
we're doing a good job.
Oh, good, good. All right, thank you. Very cool. All right, so next question for you then is, so we've got this idea, maybe we're doing a brand renovation, things like that.
Okay.
What about distribution? I mean, if you're trying to put information out there in front of people, you're trying to, build that image in a different direction maybe.
Okay.
Not from scratch, of course. What would you recommend? I mean, what are some of the things you've done to build your personal brand?
I've done, the first thing that I did was to be very intentional about the attributes to my personal brand that I hold dear,
Okay.
that are non-negotiable, right?
Sure.
So for me, authenticity is number one.
Okay.
If you meet me at the conference, if you meet me at church, if you meet me at a dance event, if I'm keynote speaking, you should be able to think that, oh, all of these are the same Faye,
Okay.
right?
So consistency across all mediums. So
That's right,
okay.
because here's what research shows is that if you can nail being authentic when people meet you, or even if they see me on the stream, right? Then they feel like I'm being consistent. And if you have authenticity and you're consistent with it, then people say, well, you know what? That's trustworthy. I can trust that when I see Faye, this is who she is. And because she's consistent, I can kind of forecast what I'll get when I interact with her.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right?
Sure. And I think consistency is an important part of marketing in general, but obviously it plays a big role in branding and, you know, like we said earlier, reputation, right? If your reputation is not consistent, then people don't know what to think about you.
That's why brands, big brands, spend so much money over and over, years and years, year over year, to build in the solid reputation of their brand. So everybody knows what Nike is, right? Everybody knows what that swoosh means.
Yep.
Everybody knows what they're selling, that they're going to be inspiring, that they're going to give you just the right amount of technology and fashion so that when you run the marathon or if you're engaged in any other kind of sports, come to Nike.
Yeah.
Just do it, right?
Just do it, yeah.
Just do it.
Love it. All right. Well, I do want to ask you, we got 1 or 2 minutes left. I want to ask you a little bit about your other presentation, which focuses specifically on entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about the person who is thinking about starting a business, right? They haven't quite pulled the trigger yet. What are some of the first things they need to be doing, or what are some of the pitfalls they need to watch out for?
Okay, if I could only say one thing, it is this. Your current employer should be your first investor in your company.
Interesting. Okay.
Because what you want to do is you want to dig the well before you need the water. So while you're on a salary, while you have access to training, and you have stability in terms of keeping yourself going, right? Because you got direct deposit. Then at that point, I want you to see your company as being the first investor in your new company. And before you launch, I want you to do all the things necessary to build tools and supports for you. For example, even if you're bootstrapping, which means that you're going to start off with your own money, at some point for your business to grow, you're going to have to infuse it with capital.
Sure.
Otherwise, what happens is you end up with a hobby that never grew up.
Yeah.
So before you ever leave your job, what I want you to do is to start networking with bankers, to start networking with entrepreneurs who have done successful deals, right? Because they can be mentors and they can be references.
Oh,
because
okay.
if you're a banker, I'm an entrepreneur, you loan me $1 million, I did what I needed to do to invest in my company to scale it up, and now I bring to you another friend.
Yeah, here you go. Make some more money here.
That's right. So, you know, that whole birds of a feather flock together, and people that are like-minded and have the same principles, then as a banker, you might think, oh, as opposed to the next guy off the street, that this guy is a safer bet. So I want you to cover funding. I want you to start networking inside your industry.
Okay.
Because you should belong to the industry association. You should be getting tidbits about what does pricing look like inside of your industry. What are the best practices inside your industry? If there's equipment, who are the top vendors for equipment when you get ready to launch this business? And then the third leg on this stool is, I want you to start really understanding who your customer is.
Sure.
I've done loads and loads of research with entrepreneurs over the years, and many times I'll say, so who's your customer? And they'll say, everyone's my customer. This is such a great product. Okay, rarely true. Everyone, everyone is not your customer.
Sure.
So you need to understand who your customer is, and you need to start looking, if you're selling retail, go to the shelf. See who your competition would be. See what the pricing is, what the packaging is, where that product would be located on the shelf, and the nuances of that. Get to know your customer deeply.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's great
that
advice.
will give you a jump start.
That's perfect. Yeah, I think a lot of the entrepreneurs, if they had started that way, I think we would all have been in better shape, myself included.
Myself included.
Yeah. I was one of those that I quit and I started my business the next day, you know. think I was quitting regardless of starting the business at that point. But yeah, it would have been nice to have worked a little bit longer before I pulled the
absolutely.
trigger there, right?
But that's why you and I are here talking to and working with
We learn it the hard way
entrepreneurs.
so we can help other people not
Absolutely.
make those mistakes, right?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, those sound like both great presentations for people to attend, so hopefully some of our viewers will be able to join you for those. And Faye, I want to thank you for taking some time to sit down
Thank
today.
you.
Really appreciate it. And for those of you watching, just remember that we are doing this throughout the day over the next couple days. Please continue to tune in here in the Leadership Lounge. Thanks for watching.